Hey guys, so today I'm actually doing something a little bit different since a lot of people have asked me to do things like demos or tutorials or things like that. I decided a good way to kind of start breaking into that would be to do a real-time drawing for you and kind of talk about what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so you can kind of see my process without it being sped up, and I can kind of tell you how I approach things and things like that. So I will be doing multiple ones of these, so I don't have to like put too much information into one drawing. So today I'm just going to be drawing, kind of showing how I draw faces. So I'll just be drawing a head, probably, or like from the shoulders up, not just like a floating head, but I'll be drawing someone from like the shoulders up, and I'll kind of explain my process of doing that. This isn't going to be a full finished illustration. I will be doing a pencil sketch, and I'll refine it a little bit with some darker pencil afterwards, but I won't be inking this particular time. But I will just get started, I guess. Well, hopefully this stays focused and you can kind of see what I'm doing. I do tend to draw lightly at first, so it's easier to erase if I need to. And right now I'm just using a light gray color erase pencil. Nothing fancy. You can buy these at art supply stores or at craft stores and things for a couple bucks. So let's get started. When I draw heads, I always start with a circle and kind of use, this is something you see a lot if you've drawn in classes or if you've picked up any how to draw book, but you kind of decide which way you want the face to face, which way you want the head to face, and you can use these lines right here to kind of define which way they're going to be facing. So if the eyes were here and the head was tilted this way, the person would be looking a little bit in this direction, if that makes any sense. Then I will start kind of building up the face shape, and I decide, usually this is where I decide if I want it to look super cartoony or a little less cartoony. I'm sure if you follow my artwork you've seen me draw in a couple different styles. So this one, I'm making the face a little less rounded, the chin's a little bit longer, so this one's going to be a little bit less cartoony. I usually draw in the ears even if later on they're going to be covered in hair, just because I like to know where the placement of it is. This is something you hear a lot when you're learning how to draw anatomy as well, where you draw what's underneath even if you can't end up seeing it later, because it helps you understand form better and it keeps your drawing from looking flat. For the neck and shoulders, this is really basic. I draw people in this pose all the time where it's literally just them sitting looking in one direction. For the neck, you'll basically, there's no way of saying this in a way that doesn't sound weird, but like you'll know if it looks wrong, like if it looks like it's coming out of the wrong part of the head. Like if you have it super far this way or super far this way, it's going to look kind of weird. So a lot of this comes from studying how heads work, studying people in real life, kind of understanding what looks natural. This is why I've said many times in my videos, practice is really the only way to improve with drawings like this, and why I've said in the past that learning how to draw from real life is super helpful even if you're not going to be drawing realistically, because I had to take an entire semester's class on how to draw heads, and it made it a lot easier to understand how to simplify it in this sort of way. So we got the basic shape there, and we'll probably just draw it to about there. Usually what I do after that is I start the hair, because I want to know where the hair is going to fall over the face, so I don't worry about drawing the eyes and then end up accidentally covering them with hair, and then I wasted all that time drawing eyes. I tend to draw bangs a lot just because I like how they look, and also it's sometimes can be difficult, and maybe I'm a little bit lazy. Yeah, I'm a little bit lazy with my drawing sometimes. Drawing a hairline that looks natural and doesn't look super weird can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So it doesn't look like a helmet of hair. So sometimes I draw bangs just to kind of cover up the hairline, and I will be doing bangs again today because, like I said, I do like how they look. We'll do some side swept bangs. A good way to think about how to draw hair is to think about where the hairline would start. So if the eyes are roughly around here, the hairline is going to be somewhere around here. So bangs usually start here, and they can go up higher, but they usually start around there. And these ones are side swept, so you can just kind of draw them as you see fit. When you get to this side of the head, try to keep in mind that your hair does wrap around your head, so don't try to draw it like super flat and then stop right here. Like this is going to wrap around the side of your head and the side of your face. On this side, let's have this hair be pulled up into a little barrette. I draw this a lot too because I like the effect of it. So that's the hair pulled up right there. And then a lot of times I will draw strands of hair in front of the ears. This is an aesthetic thing for me. I like how it looks better. In real life, this is oftentimes how I wear my own hair, because I just like how it looks when there's a little bit of hair in front of the ear. I think it looks cute. So on this particular side, you will be seeing some of the ear sticking out. So I'll start to define that a little bit more. I am a big fan of drawing jewelry on people's ears because they're there, so why not adorn them? This ear you're not going to be able to see as much. You can see part of it's covered. So you can kind of define it a little bit, but you don't have to too much. And then you can kind of draw in the top part of the hair now. And then you can decide, do you want the hair up, do you want it down, what do you want to do with it? When you're drawing the top part of the hair, keep in mind that it's high enough so it looks like it's covering your head, like it's not too low down, which is another reason people tell you to kind of draw the whole head or the whole skull or the whole body before you draw stuff on top of it, because a skull would go, about to here. So you want to make sure the hair covers that. If the hair was down here, the head would look flat. So you want to make sure the hair is high enough. And let's have her hair be down, I think. Yeah. And it'll be kind of straight, with a little bit of a wave to it. All right. So for hair, a lot of people ask me how I draw hair. I will probably have to do separate videos specifically on hair, and I'll draw more complicated stuff there. This is, again, a thing that takes a lot of practice. I highly, highly recommend studying this in real life. But a good way to think about it, just from a starter point of view, is don't think about it as individual strands, because you're going to make yourself go crazy trying to draw every little strand. Think of it as locks of hair, as chunks of hair. So like this chunk of bangs right here, or like this big strand here, or this section here. If you think of it that way, it's easier to break down the shapes you want, and then you can go in and add the definition later. But that's like a good way to start. And also something to keep in mind is you don't want to get too crazy with like the little lines, unless that's like the style you're going for, because sometimes it can be a little overwhelming and it can kind of distract you from the overall drawing. So don't think about doing that in the beginning. Like, you always want to start with basic shapes first, start with large shapes first, and then focus in on detail, and then focus in on the smaller stuff. But always start with the larger overall shapes first. If you want hair flow to look natural, again, I'll do a separate video on hair specifically, but if this makes sense, if you can see how I'm drawing kind of an S shape to kind of get these curves here. S shapes are really, really common when you're drawing people and you want them to look fluid. I'll talk more about that in a video where I draw people full figure, but when you are drawing people in general, the more S curves you can fit as opposed to straight lines, the more fluid and the more natural it's going to look, because hair doesn't look like this necessarily. Like, even if you have straight hair, if the wind is blowing or whatever, you're going to get these nice, like, it's going to move because they're so thin and so lightweight that they move. They don't stay straight. They're not that solid. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing hair. All right. A lot of times when I start to put in the face direction lines, I'll sometimes draw the eye line too high. That's not a problem. You'll learn over time what looks natural when it comes to where to place your eyes. This is something that it just is going to come with practice over time. So for me, this is where I had it before. It's a little too high. So the eyes would be somewhere along here. And like I said, here would be the center of the face. So you want the eyes to be on either side of the center of the face. And since the face is not straight on, this eye is going to be a little bit bigger and a little bit closer to you. And this one is going to be a little bit smaller and a little bit further to this side. These sorts of lines aren't absolutely necessary. I know people who don't use them. They are incredibly helpful when you're starting out because it helps you figure out where to place things, because if this is the center of the face, you know to put the nose on this line, you know to center the mouth on this line, and you know to put the eyes on either side of it. So that's a really helpful tip if you're having trouble drawing faces. So eyes. All right, here's the thing. I get a lot of people who ask me, how do you draw eyes? Can you show me how to draw eyes? I will show you as I'm drawing eyes, but I should mention, as I've mentioned in other videos and in posts and endlessly, I don't recommend having someone teach you exactly how they draw or trying to draw exactly like someone else draws, because not only is that negating all of the work that that person did to kind of teach themselves their own style, it's doing yourself a disservice because you're not giving yourself the opportunity to develop your own style. You're just trying to be somebody else. And I don't think that's fair to anybody, because then you're not being original and you're taking away from the hard work of somebody who tried really hard to have their own unique style. If you really like how someone draws, study it and see what you like about it, and then use it to kind of develop it in your own way. Copying is not a really good way to learn, in my opinion, and I don't think it's the best way to kind of figure out who you are as an artist. So that's just my personal opinion on it. So like I said, I'm going to show you here like what I'm doing, but I don't recommend copying anybody in general. The way you draw eyes is going to vary a lot depending on your particular style. Mine tends to be a little bit of a stylized version of an actual realistic, quote unquote, realistic eyeball. So you would have the top part of the lid. I do like to usually define the lid unless it's a person who does not have defined lids. I do draw the inner part of your eye, so like where your tear duct would be. And then the lower lid, I usually don't connect it. I like it to stay open. And I'll sometimes draw 2 lines down here to kind of show the thickness of the lower lid. I draw a lot of lashes. I tend to draw eyeliner on a lot of people too, or really thick upper lash lines, because that's just how I do it. And so you can see how on this eye and this eye there's a little bit of a difference right here, because you can see more of this eye because of the way the face is turned. But in real life, this eye you wouldn't be able to see as much because the way the eye curves is going to cover the eyeball. That's why this eye shape is different than this one, and this is why it's important to study eyeballs in real life, because that makes more sense if you understand how the 3D form of an eye works. Let's say she's looking up in this direction, so I will sometimes vary up how big I draw the eyes. Sometimes I have them really big, sometimes I have them smaller. That's however I feel. I have them a little bit smaller in this particular drawing. And again, that curve of the eyelid blocking the sphere of the eyeball is more obvious right here because you can see less of the iris on this side. So something to keep in mind. If you're into shading and stuff like that, I have a tendency, even when I'm inking, to add a little bit of the shading here because it makes the eyes look more 3D. This does not need to be this dark. So that's generally how I draw eyes. And then, hope that's focused, I start with the nose. If you've followed me recently, or if you've been following my art for a while, you may have noticed in the past couple of months I've kind of changed how I've been drawing noses. I have been simplifying them a lot more lately, and I will continue to do that with this drawing. It's basically like a little smushed bean shape. I don't get too complicated with it anymore. I used to draw, way more defined noses with nostrils and everything like that, and honestly, you don't always have to do that. This is how I'm doing it. This is also a moment for you to decide what type of nose you want, like how high up you want it on the face, how big you want it to be. This actually is a little bit higher up than I would normally draw it, but I'm going to leave it because I'm going to work with it. It's not the worst thing in the world, and I don't dislike it enough to redo it. Okay, so you have your center line of your face. Here's where I drew the nose, which means the mouth will be centered on this line as well. Sometimes I just draw like a little line for a smile, but I'm actually going to draw lips today. So in this particular case, because the face is not straight on, the lips are not going to be perfectly even. And even though lips, if you think about them, they might seem flat, they are a thing that kind of curve to the front of your face. Like your face is not flat, it curves, and your lips contour to that. So you want to keep that in mind, like lips wrap around. If all of this is making zero sense to you in terms of like shapes wrapping around or, curves and contours and things like that, this is why I've recommended in the past that it's really important to understand anatomy and drawing from real life beforehand, because it'll make a lot more sense if you've kind of studied that beforehand. You don't absolutely have to do it, but I highly recommend it. So there's the top lip and then the bottom lip, which again would curve in on this side and then come out this way. That's just a little mouth. I usually add pretty strong cast shadows underneath the chin, just a stylistic choice. I always add these weird little like anime face lines. Don't know why, but it, you know, it's cute. It reminds me of Sailor Moon. I really like it. You can also add details to the face if you want. Sometimes I'll add little piercings. I am a big fan of little under eye freckles or little chin freckles. I am a big fan of those. I think they look cute. There's that. And then I'm not going to get into clothing too much because that's its own whole separate video. But let's say she's wearing a shirt. Again, wraparounds. If you want things to look more realistic and less stylistic or less cartoony and stuff like that, wraparounds are really important. So say she's wearing a shirt with a collar. It's going to wrap around the back of her neck on both sides. And let's say the collar looks like that. I don't know. So you could get rid of this. You can see how the shoulder's underneath it, but you're not going to be able to see the shoulder in the final drawing. So that's what I mean about drawing what's underneath first. So then you would have a collar that wraps around, and let's say her shirt is like that, and then she has, I don't know, buttons and stuff. That's that. I'm not going to get into clothing too much. Like I said, I will do a separate video on that. You know, maybe she has little cute lapel hearts or something. Who knows? Okay, so there's that. Yeah, I'm going to go in and just define this a little bit with a little bit of a darker pencil. This is a Graphic Gear 500. It's made by Pentel, and this is in 0.3, which is thinner than most regular leads, and it's really hard, so it's more defined than this little color pencil. And I'm just going to go in and kind of make things a little bit darker. Like I said, I'm not going to ink this because I think that's a whole other separate video, and this video is already going to be kind of long because I've stopped and rambled a little bit. But yeah, so just kind of cleaning up, and this also is, if you want to have more defined looking drawings but don't want to like color them or like add ink or whatever, this is a good way to do it because the color erase pencil underneath is a lot lighter. It doesn't scan as well. So if you wanted to like clean things up with a darker pencil and then scan this into your computer, a lot of these underneath lines wouldn't show up too much. And then you could do some digital coloring if you wanted to practice digital painting on it. Or you could just clean up some of the lines underneath if you feel like you need to. Here, so I don't know if you could see this before, but right here is a good example of things wrapping around other things. So here's the side of the face right here, and then the hair would wrap around. So say like you were tucking it behind your ear on the other side, it would wrap around the face over here, and then you would have your little decorative hair bits in front of your ear, and then the ear behind that hair. If that makes sense. When I'm drawing hair, I also really like to do this thing where there's like gaps in it, because like if the wind is blowing or if like you just have, you know, your hair moving around, it doesn't always fall in solid sheets. Like sometimes you get wind upsweeping the look of it. So I feel like it just gives it more movement to do stuff like this, and it's like a stylistic thing at this point. Like I've done it so often that it's just like a habit to draw it all the time. Define the face a little bit more. Like I said, this one's a little less cartoony than some of the super cartoony stuff I do, so the jawline's a little more defined. You could see like where it would go in a little bit here because of the eyes, the cheek would come out, the chin is a little pointy, and then you have the jawbone over here. And then you have the neck down here with the clothing wrapping around it. That. The shadow under here. Eyebrows. A lot of this stuff, if you've watched some of my speed drawings, you see I define when I'm inking, so I won't really fill these in too, well, I guess I could fill them in. I like to kind of have them soft in the beginning and then darken as you get further down, mostly because that is what on-point eyebrows are like nowadays, and it's the type of eyebrow I wish I had, but the best I can do with mine is shape and fill them in a little bit because I'm lazy. So I draw the eyebrows I wish I had. But yeah, so just do that. This side, the eyebrow is going to be covered a little bit with the hair just because it is. There. If you don't draw the eyebrows perfectly symmetrical, that's fine. Your eyebrows probably aren't symmetrical in real life anyways. Let me just define the hair a little bit more. Sometimes I'll draw this little hair thing up here. This would be, this right here would be the spot on your head where your hair kind of like sprouts out. Everyone has that like weird little swirl. A lot of times it's on the back of your head. I will sometimes draw it in the front just because I think it looks cute, or like essentially like where your part might be or something like that, just so it doesn't look like too much of a block. Like it adds variation and it like kind of breaks up this space here. And for the eyes, like I said, I like to have a really thick upper lash line. I will oftentimes draw winged eyeliner or really thick lashes just because I like it. It's how I wear my eyeliner in real life anyways. You can see right there, I accidentally kind of overdid it, and I'm not going to freak out about it too much. I'm just going to kind of fill it in. She's going to have extra thick eyeliner, and then define the eyelid, little tear duct, inner eye, outer eye, lashes. Usually, even in a pencil sketch, I don't do too much on the inside of the iris anymore, just because I don't love the look of it as much as I used to. A lot of times this is a thing that I would define with color, but if I were to add detail to an eye like this, sometimes I would just kind of draw in where the pupil would be, just to break up the empty space. I tend to draw the pupils, like this is where the highlight would be if the light were hitting it, so I don't draw a full circle for the pupil. Same on the other side. And since I accidentally made the other side a little too thick, I'll thicken up this side as well. Lashes. When you're drawing lashes, keep in mind how you can observe your own eyes. Everyone has eyelashes. Observe how the eyelashes grow out from your face or out from your eyelids, because they're not super straight and they kind of grow out along the shape of your eye, which is curved. So keep that in mind. Find the eye. Again, on this side, since part of the eye is covered by the eyelid, the pupil would be a little more to one side. You can add a little bit of shadow if you want to make it look more 3D. It's up to you. Clean up the nose shape a little bit. I'm not adding too much line weight here, just because that's something I would normally do with inking, and it's really hard to add line weight with a pencil this thin. It just takes too long. You saw how long it took to kind of fill in the top lids here. So I won't be doing that too much. Fill in the lips a little bit. I like to color in the top lip really dark. It's just a stylistic choice. It's how I've been drawing for a while. So that's just, a lot of times, like, this is a very generic face. If you've followed me on Instagram, you've seen me draw a face like this a million times. But for that reason, it's probably a good way to kind of show you the basics of how I draw. So that's not a bad thing in this particular case. Up a little bit. All right, and that's about it. I think that's pretty good representation of like a really basic girl that I would draw. So there's that. There. So hopefully that kind of helped you see a little bit more of my process than a regular speed drawing would. Hopefully this wasn't too long. I know this video is already quite long. It's going to be much longer than my other videos. But I know a lot of people kind of wanted more information on how I draw faces, so hopefully this answered some of those questions, and I will be doing some follow-up videos with anatomy and clothing and hair and things like that. So if you have any particular requests, just let me know and I'll try to get to them. And until my next video, you guys have a great day. Bye!